Lead up to the 2023 general elections, Nigerian citizens demonstrated a clear commitment to the democratic process. That said, the election exposed enduring systemic weaknesses and therefore signal a need for further legal and operational reforms to enhance transparency, inclusiveness, and accountability.
Welcome to Politics on the Wheel with Jay. How was your weekend? Is it weekend or how was your salary rather? I believe you're enjoying yourself very well. So I bring to you this morning a bit of a story about the Independent National Electoral Commission as they prepare to defend themselves on the 3rd of July 2023 against peterobi and PDP as the allegation against them of fraud that they committed during the 2023 February 25th general election. And LPC, Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Shettima are trying to defend themselves from how they were able to steal the mandate of the people and that of PDP successfully at the 25th of February 2023 general or presidential election. If you are just a new viewer, please do it to subscribe to this channel and help us grow by liking and sharing this video to loved ones and make positive reaction to this video. Here is Festus Okoye nailing the INEC once again. He has come out again to nail the INEC again. I don't know how the lawyers are going to handle this in court when the case resumes fully next week. I don't know how they're going to handle it with the way Festus Okoye is going. Now, the EU met the other day to review the election, and this was their reaction. But before I bring to you this video of how the EU reacted to the election conducted and Festus Okoye's statement concerning the election indicting the INEC again, let me also let you know that the president of South Africa is making Africa proud. The president of South Africa and also that of Kenya is making Africa proud. Africa is no longer a country that need some kind of generosity, according to what he said at the Paris Financial Summit. Now, this was what he said again in a summit.
Where Africa has evolved up to. We want to be key players on the world stage, want to be key players even in the financial markets and in the MDBs. Now, these are the positive things. I do, Mr. President Macron, want us to address another issue, which to us is a bit of a negative. You will have heard President Sisi talking about the 100 billion that was promised in Paris. President Sassou Nguesso yesterday as well also spoke about it at the dinner. Now, there is that issue that a number of the commitments that have been made have not really been fully lived up to. But before I get into details, let me immediately say that we recognize the many initiatives that have been put on the table, and a number of countries here have done so. Germany has gone out of the way to put a number of initiatives, and the US has also done a number of things. But there have been times when we felt like we were beggars. I played a key role as chair of the African Union during the COVID period. We felt like we were beggars when it came to vaccine availability, when we felt we needed access to vaccines, and the Northern Hemisphere countries had bought all the vaccines in the world, and they were hogging them. And they didn't want to release them at the time when we needed them most. And we felt like we were begging. And at times it felt like they would just be droppings from the table, that yes, we will give you that and that. And let me tell you something that generated a lot of resentment. We resented that, and it got worse when we said we want to manufacture our own vaccines. And when we went to the WTO, there was a lot of resistance, enormous resistance. And we kept saying, what is more important, life or profits by your big pharmaceutical companies? And that too, I must tell you now, generated and deepened that disappointment and resentment on our part, because we felt like life in the Northern Hemisphere is much more important than life in the Global South. And these are issues that need to be addressed. And I'm glad that we are all seated here like this, because we've got to get to the heart of these matters and address them. Now, I come to promises that have been made. And Chancellor Scholz was saying, we've got to walk the talk. Yes, we want to see the talk being walked. President Sassou Nguesso yesterday said at the dinner, $100 billion was promised per year. And he was saying, I've never seen that. And many of us will testify that that $100 billion has never really been made available. And this should stand out as something that needs to be addressed. Because sometimes we sit at conferences like this and say, yes, we'll make this available, and we believe you. We believe you, but now the tire must hit the tar. We must now see action flowing from that. Now,
they are taking over from Nigeria as the giant of Africa. The problem there is this. We had President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who went with taxpayers' money to France and was seated, back somewhere without knowing what was actually going on. Someone may say that this is so bad to say about the president of the largest economy in Africa. But the truth was that when he was being seen, and for the fact that he never appeared to speak to those presidents, but sent a delegate, it shows how incompetent he could have been at a world stage. This is a reaction from many Nigerians as to the fact that if it was Peter Obi or even the Atiku Abubakar of PDP that won the election, it would have been a very good conversation at the international stage, as we will have people with intellectual mind and health that will be able to speak and drive African economy forward. Here is a video of Festus Okayamo, and again you will see at the end of it the reaction from EU about the 2023 presidential election. Please stay to the end of this video to see everything, the reaction from them, and as well as Festus Okoye, I beg your pardon. Festus Okayamo, has been a lot of talk around him. So Festus Okoye, what he said concerning INEC once again. So here is a video, take a word, but do well to subscribe and share this video. Thank you.
To judge the entire performance of the commission on the basis of glitch in result upload for the presidential election. You had the European mission say, the European Observation Mission, say that there were substantial and significant and fundamental improvements in the conduct of the governorship and state assembly elections. That is a positive sign. Nobody has also faulted the conduct of the senatorial and House of Representatives elections. That is, for me, is also a positive sign. Now, but we must also recognize the fact that the law itself has also given the political parties the opportunity to know what goes on at each polling unit. Almost all the political parties, or at least 5 of the political parties, nominated and got accredited over 170,000 polling agents. So what that means is that they had primary evidence of the results from the polling units, and it is those results from the polling units. So, and it cannot be correct for a political party to rely only on result upload in order to get the evidence with which he wants to prosecute his case in court. But as I say, we have cases in court, petitions are already in court. Let the court make a determination of whether the commission did well or the commission did not do well. As far as we are concerned, we are going to present our report, we are going to make our submissions to the court, we are going to present what we know and what we did during the elections to the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal and all the other election petition tribunals, and then they will make a determination on going forward. But as far as the commission is concerned, there were so many positives to this election. There were also significant challenges and problems with the election. We are going to address those challenges and those problems. And
lead up to the 2023 general elections, Nigerian citizens demonstrated a clear commitment to the democratic process. That said, the election exposed enduring systemic weaknesses and therefore signal a need for further legal and operational reforms to enhance transparency, inclusiveness, and accountability. While we consider the electoral legal framework provides an adequate foundation for the conduct of democratic elections, there are ambiguities in the law. For example, the Electoral Act 2022, which had its first test in a general election in 2023, and other legal instruments evidenced gaps in terms of transparency, accountability, and inclusivity, and left room for uncertain implementation. For that reason, we recommend, and this is our first priority recommendation, to protect the interests of voters through certainty of law for all stages and aspects of electoral processes by eliminating from electoral law and regulations errors and ambiguities to avoid potential for confusing interpretations and ensuring the revision processes are inclusive. A positive aspect of the voter registration process was active youth engagement, with 2/3 of the 9.5 million new registrants being young people. However, there is a need for greater efforts to protect genuine youth participation in elections, and similarly, ongoing underrepresentation of marginalized groups in political life requires robust remedial action. Overall, the collection of permanent voter cards was adversely affected by poor institutional planning and a lack of transparency. To ensure the accuracy and inclusiveness of the voter register, an external independent audit would be beneficial. The campaign was competitive, with freedom of assembly largely respected, as evidenced by the nationwide conduct of rallies. However, challenges such as the naira, cash, and fuel scarcity and incidents of orchestrated violence were observed to hamper some campaign activities and to reduce attendance. In addition, the mission recorded cases of undue interference by governors, while the campaign was also marred by internal party conflicts. Personality-focused canvassing and misuses of incumbency by governors tilted the playing field, leading to increased polarization, driven by divisive rhetoric based on ethnicity and religion. Candidates' prospects to meaningfully campaign also were negatively impacted by a high level of disputes resulting from candidate registration. The mission noted well over 1,000 pre-election court cases, some negatively impacted or overlapped with the polls. Our mission recorded more than 100 campaign-related violent incidents, including, tragically, assassinations. These and other criminal acts obstructed the campaign, disrupted the elections, and suppressed voter participation. Weaknesses in the legal framework for these electoral offences and others, such as misuse of state resources, intimidation, and vote buying, contributed to inadequate enforcement. Key state institutions, including INEC, but also political parties, failed to tackle these problems. Coming to our second priority recommendation, we consider there is a pressing need to address impunity for electoral offences through robust, well-defined and effective interagency coordination governed by clear rules on non-partisanship, optimization of resources, delivery of effective investigation and sanctioning, and provision of regular public consolidated information on outcomes. INEC introduced some very positive measures early in the electoral process. For example, it increased the number of polling units and established a system of electronic accreditation of party agents, media and observers. Public confidence, however, in INEC was severely damaged on the 25th of February due to its operational failures and lack of transparency. While some corrective measures introduced before the 18th of March elections seemed to have a positive impact, overall trust was not restored and eventually led civil society to call for an independent audit of the entire process. However, there is no legal requirement for qualification and merit-based appointments of the positions of INEC Commissioner or Resident Electoral Commissioner. Prior to the elections, selection processes were questioned, leaving the institution vulnerable to mistrust. We believe that these vulnerabilities can be effectively addressed by, and this is our third priority recommendation, establishing a robust operational framework for the independence, integrity and efficiency of electoral administration through an inclusive and publicly accountable mechanism for selecting candidates to the posts of INEC commissioners and recs based on clear criteria of evaluation of merits, qualifications, and verified non-partisanship. A number of key issues hindered freedom of expression and limited voters' access to diverse information. For example, analytical reporting was limited due to self-censorship by state-level outlets who feared retribution from governors. Fines were imposed by the broadcast media regulator without due process. We are also seriously concerned journalists faced attacks and with little consequences for the perpetrators. Therefore, and our fourth priority recommendation, we consider it essential to afford adequate protection to freedom of expression by developing a comprehensive operational framework underpinned by the skills and means for ensuring prompt investigation and prosecution of all types of attacks against media practitioners. Positively, the media raised voters' awareness, fact-checkers stood up against disinformation, and media outlets extensively covered the campaign, providing equitable exposure to both the APC and PDP. Disappointingly, politicians avoided answering merit-based questions during interviews and instead engaged in party infighting. While social media was an important tool for information exchange, campaigning and mobilization, misinformation was massively spread. Additionally, we noted legal provisions, such as the Cybercrime Act, had the effect of encouraging self-censorship, and we therefore consider amendment of the legislation is needed to safeguard freedom of expression. Detailed operational frameworks to strengthen inclusion are needed. For example, we found that persons with disabilities could not always access polling units and assistive devices were rarely available.
Thank you for watching, and that is it for me today. I will see you very soon, and I'll be bringing to you this weekend the review where we'll be seeing what is going on our fuel subsidy, and do well to join us in the episode that will be coming up next month. Know your leaders, and as well as the streets conversation. Thank you, and I remain Jay.